These wild police chases ended in the most unexpected ways. Police chases are supposed to be predictable. A suspect speeds away, officers give pursuit, and it ends with flashing lights and handcuffs. But every so often, something truly bizarre happens. A car chase that starts like every other turns into something no one could have imagined. Sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes heartwarming, sometimes unbelievable, but always unforgettable. These are the wild police chases that ended in the most unexpected ways. The first story takes us to Los Angeles, a city famous for its high-speed pursuits. Late one afternoon, officers began chasing a suspect driving a stolen SUV through downtown traffic. The driver weaved through lanes, dodged buses, and sped onto the freeway. But what came next stunned everyone watching live on TV. After 20 minutes, the SUV slowed down, stopped in the middle of the road, and the driver calmly stepped out holding a puppy. He gently handed it to a bystander before lying down to surrender. The officers were speechless. The suspect later told reporters, "I didn't want the dog to get hurt." In Florida, one of the strangest chases in recent history began when officers tried to stop a speeding car that refused to pull over. The driver swerved wildly through traffic until suddenly the car slowed to a crawl and began weaving from lane to lane. When officers approached, they discovered the suspect wasn't human at all. The driver's seat was empty. The culprit was a dog that had accidentally knocked the gear shift into drive. For several surreal minutes, the unmanned car had cruised down the highway on its own. Even the officers couldn't stop laughing as they wrote the report. Not all unexpected endings are funny. Some are just plain strange. In Oklahoma, a suspect stole a delivery truck and led officers on a 2-hour chase through multiple counties. The pursuit ended when the truck veered off the road and crashed into a field of hay bales. But when officers surrounded the vehicle, it was empty. The driver had vanished. Helicopters searched for hours before realizing the man had crawled into a hay bale to hide and promptly fallen asleep. He was found snoring peacefully, surrounded by police lights. Then there's the case from Texas that went viral for all the right reasons. A young man, wanted for traffic violations, panicked when officers tried to pull him over. Instead of stopping, he sped off straight toward his mother's house. Police followed, expecting a standoff, but as soon as he parked, his mother stormed outside, arms crossed, and shouted, "You're in more trouble with me than with them." The suspect immediately put his hands up. Officers later said it was the first arrest ever assisted by a disappointed mom. In Georgia, an ordinary traffic stop turned into one of the most bizarre pursuits ever caught on camera. The suspect refused to pull over and instead drove into a local drive-thru. Officers thought he was cornered until he rolled down his window, paid for his order, and grabbed his bag. "I just needed my food," he said before driving off again. The chase ended moments later when he stopped in a nearby parking lot to eat his burger. The officer's body cam recorded him laughing as he said, "At least you got your fries." One of the most shocking twists happened in Arizona when a stolen car sped down an empty desert highway with 3 patrol cars in pursuit. After a 10-minute chase, the car suddenly slowed, swerved, and stopped. Officers approached cautiously, and out stepped a 10-year-old boy. He had taken his parents' car for a joyride because he wanted to see the sunset in the desert. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and officers decided not to arrest him. They simply gave him a ride home. The video later became an internet sensation. Not every wild chase ends on land. In Washington state, police were stunned when a driver tried to escape by steering straight onto a ferry ramp. Before they could react, the suspect drove onto the departing ferry and jumped out of the car, pretending to be a passenger. The plan almost worked until he accidentally waved at the same officers who had followed him aboard. They walked over, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Nice try, sailor." Another unforgettable case took place in Illinois, where officers pursued a stolen ice cream truck. For nearly 30 minutes, the truck raced through suburban streets, music still playing through its speakers. At one point, the driver even tossed ice cream bars out the window, possibly trying to slow down the police. When the chase ended, children from nearby houses ran outside, cheering and grabbing the dropped treats. The officer who made the arrest later admitted, "It was the most delicious pursuit I've ever been in." Sometimes the chase ends because the car itself gives up. In Nevada, a suspect driving a stolen luxury vehicle sped through the desert at over 120 miles per hour until the car's smart system automatically slowed down. The man had accidentally triggered the vehicle's remote safety feature, which limits speed after detecting reckless driving. By the time officers caught up, the car had shut itself off. The suspect reportedly asked, "How'd you you do that?" One officer replied, "Your car arrested you for us." In North Carolina, officers expected a routine chase after a man fled a traffic stop. What they got instead was a one-car parade. As they followed him through downtown, the man threw handfuls of dollar bills out the window. It wasn't an attempt to distract, it was performance art. He told police later he wanted to make it rain before getting caught. Onlookers called it the most generous getaway in state history. Sometimes the ending is pure chaos. In Oregon, a suspect stole a backhoe from a construction site and drove it down the highway at 5 miles per hour, with police following in disbelief. When officers finally caught up, the man yelled that he was building a shortcut to freedom. The scene was so absurd that officers took photos before making the arrest. The backhoe's journey ended in a ditch, but the story became local legend. One of the most dramatic chases came out of Alaska, where officers pursued a pickup truck across frozen ground. The driver was desperate to escape and took a shortcut across what looked like solid ice. It wasn't. The truck broke through, sinking halfway into freezing water. The suspect climbed onto the roof and waved for help. Officers pulled him out safely and arrested him for reckless driving. Technically, one officer joked, he didn't get away, but his truck sure did. In Utah, officers once chased a stolen car that seemed unstoppable. After a long pursuit through mountain roads, the driver crashed and ran on foot, straight into a herd of deer. The animals scattered in every direction, and the man fell trying to dodge them. When officers caught up, they couldn't stop laughing. "Outrun the cops, maybe," one said, "but not the wildlife." Not all endings are funny, or some are oddly touching. In Ohio, a woman fleeing police suddenly stopped her car and got out crying. She explained she was running not to escape, but to reach her dog, who was stuck in a storm drain nearby. Officers followed her and helped free the animal. They decided not to arrest her, citing emotional distress. What began as a chase ended with applause and a very happy dog. In Colorado, officers got a surprise ending when a high-speed pursuit turned into a rescue mission. A stolen car spun out on an icy road and slid into a ditch. When officers approached, they found the suspect trapped inside, panicking as smoke filled the car. The same officers who'd been chasing him moments earlier broke the window and pulled him to safety. He later thanked them for saving his life. The officer's report summed it up perfectly. "We arrested him, but we still helped him." The Midwest produced one of the most unexpected endings in police history. In Kansas, officers chased a car that refused to stop until it suddenly slowed, pulled over, and opened the trunk. Out popped the suspect's grandmother. She had been asleep in the back seat and woke up mid-chase. She scolded her grandson so fiercely that he gave up immediately. "That's the first time," one officer said, "a suspect surrendered to his grandma instead of the police." In Maine, a man tried to escape police by jumping into a river, and without realizing it was only 3 feet deep. The chase ended with him standing waist deep in icy water, looking embarrassed as officers approached from the riverbank. When they asked why he jumped, he said, "I thought it was deeper." The dashcam audio captured officers laughing as they replied, "Yeah, we can tell." Perhaps the most incredible ending happened in California during what started as a dangerous high-speed pursuit through city streets. After nearly an hour, the suspect's tires blew out and the car came to a stop. Officers cautiously surrounded the vehicle. Then, to everyone's shock, the driver stepped out wearing a wedding tuxedo. He explained he was late for his own wedding and panicked when he saw the lights behind him. Instead of arresting him on the spot, the officers escorted him to the courthouse, where his bride was waiting. They even posed for photos. The department later posted, "We caught the groom, but still gave him a happy ending." And finally, one of the most unbelievable and heartwarming endings took place in Pennsylvania. A man fleeing police after a minor theft crashed his car in a rural area and tried to hide in the woods. When officers found him hours later, he was sitting by a campfire with 2 local hikers who had no idea who he was. They'd offered him food and coffee. When the officers explained the situation, one hiker simply said, "He's been polite, let him finish his meal." The suspect quietly stood, handed over his coffee cup and said, "Thanks for not shooting me with cameras or guns." Everyone, even the officers, laughed. These wild police chases prove that not every pursuit ends in chaos or tragedy. Sometimes they end with a laugh, a lesson, or even an act of kindness. They remind us that behind the flashing lights and loud sirens are people, both the officers and the suspects, caught in moments that are as unpredictable as life itself. And when the unexpected happens, sometimes all you can do is laugh at how human it all is.